In the icy stillness of a Chicago dawn, a powerful man met the one woman unafraid to challenge his world. A collapsed building, a desperate rescue, and a single moment of undeniable connection shattered the walls around his guarded heart. She arrived seeking justice. He stood torn between duty and desire, and neither imagined how deeply their lives were about to intertwine, or how dangerous the truth could become. A secret pulses beneath the surface. A choice is coming. And love may demand a price neither is ready to pay. If you love emotional, dramatic romances like this one, subscribe to the channel. Together, let's reach 1,000 subscribers and help this story-filled community grow. Chicago woke beneath a pale veil of frost, the kind that softened the city's sharp edges and made every window pane shimmer like glass lace. But no amount of winter beauty could quiet the storm gathering around Carter Whitmore. His face dominated the morning news yet again, framed by desert skylines and luxury aircraft. Commentators repeated the tabloid nickname with shameless fascination, as if it were a crown he had chosen rather than a cage forced upon him. "The Dubai Maharaja returns," the anchor announced, her tone equal parts awe and provocation. Carter muted the screen with a single touch and exhaled slowly. He stood alone in the sleek stillness of his penthouse, its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a city that seemed both his kingdom and his burden. He had been home less than 12 hours, yet the desert sands clung to him in the form of rumor and expectation. The world admired him, but no one saw the truth beneath the immaculate surface. And today, there was no time to dwell on illusions, not when the company his family had built over generations was slipping into chaos. By the time he reached Whitmore Industries headquarters in the Loop, reporters were already gathered near the entrance, their breath forming impatient clouds in the icy air. Cameras clicked like restless insects. Carter ignored them with the practiced ease of a man who had learned to breathe inside scrutiny. Inside the boardroom, tension waited for him like a held breath. Half a dozen executives murmured nervously, flipping through documents they barely understood. At the head of the table sat Graham Sutter, his expression polished into false concern. "We need stronger action, Carter," Graham said as soon as the door closed. "The workers are staging another demonstration. Investors are calling non-stop. We cannot look indecisive." Carter removed his gloves with deliberate calm. "We are not going to crush people to make the markets happy." Graham's smile sharpened. "Then perhaps you should have returned from Dubai sooner." Before Carter could respond, the door opened again, and the room shifted. Every gaze turned toward the woman entering with quiet confidence and steady purpose. Lily Bennett. Carter had only read her name in a briefing note the night before, but no written report had prepared him for her presence. She carried the winter air with her, crisp and refreshing, yet her expression held a strength that warmed the room more than any heater could. Her dark hair was gathered in a simple low twist, and her eyes, deep, clear and unwavering, met his without hesitation. "Good morning," she said, placing her folder on the table. "I am here on behalf of the workers affected by your restructuring." Carter felt something stir in him, something he refused to name. Perhaps it was admiration, perhaps irritation, perhaps the dangerous magnetic pull of a woman who refused to be intimidated by power. "Thank you for coming," he said, his tone polite but cool. She held his gaze. "I did not come to thank you, Mr. Whitmore. I came because people are scared and they deserve answers." Her words were not disrespectful, but they cut through the pretense in a way no one else dared. Carter's composure slipped for a heartbeat, revealing a flicker of surprise. She had challenged him openly, boldly, and yet her voice carried no hostility, only conviction. Graham scoffed under his breath. "This is precisely why negotiations stall. Idealism does not solve financial crises." Lily turned to him with calm fire. "Idealism did not create the crisis, Mr. Sutter. Carelessness did." Carter watched her, unable to look away. She was not speaking for cameras. She was not performing. She was fighting for people, and she did it with elegance, strength, and a dignity that made everyone else in the room seem smaller. When the meeting began, every exchange between Carter and Lily felt like a delicate duel. Their voices never rose, yet emotion pulsed beneath every word. "Your workers feel abandoned," Lily said. "And I refuse to abandon them," Carter replied. "Words do not warm homes in winter," she countered softly, his jaw tightened. "Then tell me what will." Their eyes locked, and for a moment the boardroom disappeared. In that suspended breath, Carter felt an unfamiliar sensation, someone truly seeing him, not the myth, not the billionaire, not the desert prince created by tabloids. Him. It unsettled him. It intrigued him. It ignited something. When the meeting ended, Lily gathered her notes with graceful efficiency. Carter approached her, compelled by an instinct he did not understand. "Miss Bennet," he said quietly. She looked up, and the air between them shifted again. "I appreciate your candor," he continued. "Most people are hesitant to speak to me the way you did." She tilted her head. "Most people are afraid of losing something. I am not." "And what about you?" His voice dropped without meaning to. "What do you stand to lose?" She searched his eyes for a moment, and her answer came like a soft truth wrapped in steel. "My integrity. Nothing else." Something tightened in his chest. Before he could speak again, Graham reappeared in the doorway. "Carter, we have an urgent matter. The board wants a private session." Lily nodded once. "We will continue tomorrow." When she left the room, Carter felt the absence of her presence like a shift in gravity. Moments later, the board delivered the blow he had not anticipated. Graham stepped forward, adopting the tone of false sympathy. "Carter, the shareholders are demanding stability. We believe the best course is clear. An alliance, a union." Eleanor Whitmore had already called him that morning, pressing the same idea with maternal insistence. A merger of families, fortunes, and influence, an arranged engagement to Vivian Caldwell, for the good of the company, for the good of the legacy, for the illusion of control. Carter felt the walls tightening around him. "The decision must be made immediately," Graham said. "Chicago cannot see weakness." Carter looked out the tall windows, watching snow drift past the skyline. Weakness, strength, stability, legacy. Words he had lived by his entire life, now twisted into shackles. He thought of Lily's steady gaze, her unwavering truth, the warmth in her voice when she spoke of protecting others. She was everything the board hated, and everything he could not afford to want. Carter closed his eyes briefly, not to surrender, but to breathe. "Give me until tomorrow," he said. Graham smirked. "You will make the right choice." When Carter exited the building, snowflakes clung to his coat. The city buzzed around him, cold and loud, yet all he could think of was the woman who had walked into his life with winter in her coat and fire in her voice. He did not know why she affected him so deeply. He only knew this: Chicago no longer felt like the city he had mastered. It felt like the city where everything might finally change. The next morning rose over Chicago with a pale, hesitant light, as though even the sun feared to cut through the heavy winter clouds. Carter Whitmore had slept only a few hours, yet no sign of fatigue marked his posture as he walked through the quiet halls of his penthouse. His reflection in the tall windows showed a man composed, controlled, and dressed for war in a dark, tailored suit. But beneath the immaculate surface, his thoughts churned with a restless energy he could not ignore. He had spent the night replaying Lily Bennet's voice in his mind, the clarity of her conviction ringing louder than any board directive. Something about her had struck deep, unsettling the careful balance that had sustained him for years. He told himself it was her intelligence, her strength, her unwavering dedication to her cause, but the truth, the one he refused to name, was far more dangerous. When he arrived at headquarters, the atmosphere buzzed with a strange, anticipatory tension. Assistants whispered outside closed doors. Executives hurried past with folders pressed to their chests. The air felt heavier, thick with the weight of decisions made behind elegant walls. Eleanor Whitmore was waiting for him in his private conference room, dressed in a fitted winter coat of charcoal wool and a string of pearls that caught the morning light whenever she moved. Her posture was regal, yet her eyes were sharp with purpose. "Carter," she greeted smoothly, rising to kiss his cheek. "You look tired." "I am fine," he replied, though the lie tasted weary in his mouth. She studied him with a mother's discerning eye, then removed her gloves with measured grace. "The board met again last night. They are concerned. Investors are whispering. Markets dislike uncertainty. You know how fragile confidence becomes during moments like this." He sighed, not wanting to repeat the same arguments. "The crisis can be managed." "Yes," she agreed softly, "but not without decisive optics." At that, Carter felt a familiar coil of frustration tighten in his chest. "Optics will not fix the problems." "Optics," Eleanor corrected gently, "will buy you the time to fix them." She paused, letting the silence carry the weight of her next words. "They believe the arranged engagement is the best course." Carter looked away, his jaw tightening. He had known this moment was coming, but knowing did nothing to ease the sting. "Mother," he said quietly, "I cannot agree to marry someone for appearances." Eleanor stepped closer, her voice lowering to an intimate whisper. "This is not about marriage in the romantic sense. It is about stability. Our family name commands respect, but even legacies can crumble if not safeguarded. And you believe an alliance with the Caldwells will fix everything?" His tone held a bitterness he did not try to hide. She did not flinch. "Vivian Caldwell comes from a powerful lineage. Her family has influence, resources, and a reputation that complements our own. Together, you would silence the rumors and present an unbreakable front." Carter lifted a hand to his forehead, feeling the pressure building between his temples. "I will not tether myself to a woman I do not love." Eleanor's expression softened, though her resolve remained. "Love is a luxury, my son, one that many never find, and even fewer get to keep." Her words struck him harder than he expected. He turned away, staring through the tall windows toward the city below. Snow drifted past in slow, delicate spirals, reminding him of Lily's eyes as she had spoken with such fearless sincerity the day before. Eleanor moved closer, her voice a tender plea. "Carter, listen to me. You have responsibilities far larger than your personal desires. I am not asking you to give your heart to this woman, only to consider what you might lose if you refuse." He remained silent. She reached for his hand, a rare gesture of vulnerability. "Please think of the legacy." He swallowed hard, torn between two worlds that refused to coexist. Before he could reply, an assistant knocked gently and announced, "Mr. Whitmore, Ms. Caldwell has arrived." Vivian Caldwell entered the room like someone accustomed to admiration. She wore a navy dress that framed her tall, elegant figure, and her honey-blonde hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. Her smile was warm, practiced, and perfectly measured. "Carter," she said, extending her hand with effortless confidence, "it is good to see you again." He forced a polite smile as he accepted her hand. "Vivian, thank you for coming on short notice." "Anything to help," she replied with charming sweetness. Her gaze flicked briefly to Eleanor, subtly signaling alignment. "Your mother explained everything. I understand the importance of presenting a united front." Carter stiffened. "I have not made any decisions." Vivian's smile did not waver. "Of course, but I am here to support whatever path you choose." Her tone implied she already knew which path he would take. The assumption unsettled him. Eleanor gestured gracefully. "Perhaps you two should speak privately." Carter exhaled slowly. He did not want this conversation, but avoiding it would change nothing. He escorted Vivian to the adjoining conference lounge, where floor-length windows offered a stunning view of the bustling city below. Vivian stepped near the glass, admiring the skyline with a poised sigh. "Chicago has always been one of my favorite cities. There is a strength to it, a dignity." He remained near the doorway. "Vivian, I must be honest. I do not know if this engagement is the right answer." She turned to him, her expression sympathetic, though something unreadable flickered behind her eyes. "Carter, I am not offended by your hesitation. You are a thoughtful man. You do not make impulsive decisions." He appreciated the sentiment, but her tone felt strangely diplomatic. She stepped closer, lowering her voice with gentle persuasion. "This arrangement benefits both of us. Our families align well. The public respects us. We could build something stable, something lasting, even if not built on fairy tale romance." His chest tightened, the word romance echoing through him like a forgotten melody. A different face sprang into his mind, framed by winter light and fierce conviction. Lily Bennet. Vivian noticed the shift in his expression, but pretended not to. She clasped her hands before her. "I am not asking you to love me, Carter. I am asking you to consider stability." He shook his head lightly. "You make it sound easy." "It can be," she said softly, "if you allow it." Before he could respond, the door opened again. Lily Bennet stood in the threshold, holding a folder against her chest, her breath visible in the cold air she had just stepped from. She froze when she realized the room was occupied. Her eyes flicked from Carter to Vivian, and a faint flush rose along her cheeks. "Excuse the interruption," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. "I was informed there was additional documentation needed for the negotiations." Something tightened in Carter's chest at the sight of her. Lily wore a fitted wool coat, dark trousers, and a simple grey sweater that somehow elevated her presence above every designer garment in the room. Her hair, slightly damp from the snow, clung to her temples in delicate strands. Vivian stepped forward with a confident, polite smile. "You must be Ms. Bennet. I have heard quite a bit about you." Lily nodded, returning the smile with cool professionalism. "Likewise." Vivian's gaze held a subtle challenge. "I hope your work with Carter has been productive." Carter sensed the undercurrent instantly, two women assessing the battlefield from different angles. Lily looked at him briefly, and her eyes betrayed something she likely wished to hide. Concern, confusion, maybe even disappointment. "It has been productive," Lily answered, "though the situation is complex." Vivian tilted her head. "Complexities often require strong alliances." Lily's expression remained unchanged, but the message was clear. She was not intimidated. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, turning to Carter, "may I speak with you for a moment? It concerns the workers' proposal." "Of course," he replied, eager to step away from the suffocating expectations surrounding him. Vivian gracefully excused herself, walking back toward Eleanor. Lily closed the door behind them, and for a heartbeat they stood alone in the quiet lounge, the city humming far below. Carter exhaled softly. "I am sorry you walked into that." Lily held the folder tightly, her knuckles pale. "It is none of my business what you choose to do with your personal life." Her tone was formal, yet a faint tremor hinted at something deeper. He stepped closer, not enough to breach her space, but enough to feel the warmth radiating from her even through the winter chill. "Lily," he said gently, "I do not want you to misunderstand. This engagement is not something I desire." She lifted her eyes, and the force of her gaze cracked something in him. "Then why consider it?" He hesitated, the truth heavy on his tongue. "Pressure, legacy, fear of losing everything my family built." Her voice softened. "And what about losing yourself?" The question struck him like an unexpected blow. He felt it echo in every part of him that he had buried under responsibility and expectation. He stepped even closer, drawn to her without permission. "When you speak, I feel as though you see something in me I thought was gone." Lily swallowed, her breath trembling. "I only see the man who stood in the cold last night helping people without cameras watching." Their eyes locked, and a slow, dangerous warmth unfurled between them. Carter lowered his voice. "Lily, tell me something honestly. Do you think I can fix what is happening?" She searched his expression with devastating tenderness. I think you can do anything, Carter, if you choose courage over fear. Her words wrapped around him like a lifeline. He wanted to touch her hand, to brush the damp strand of hair from her cheek, to confess how deeply her presence unsettled and steadied him at the same time. But he held himself back, the tension trembling in his restraint. "Thank you," he whispered. Lily stepped back gently, her composure returning. "I should let you return to your meeting." "Lily," he said again, and she paused with her hand on the door. He wished he could tell her everything, that he did not want the engagement, that she was the voice he trusted more than his own, that being near her made the world tilt. Instead, he said only, "I am glad you came." Her eyes softened. "So am I." Then she was gone, leaving behind the faint scent of winter and the lingering warmth of a moment neither of them dared to name. As the door closed, Carter felt something shift inside him, something that would not be silenced. Vivian and the board might believe they controlled his future, but Lily Bennett had become the quiet force, stirring his heart awake. And for the first time in years, Carter found himself wondering whether duty alone should decide the life he was meant to live. The cold arrived without warning that evening, sweeping through Chicago with a ferocity that made the windows tremble. The wind howled between the buildings as if warning the city of the night ahead. Snow fell in thick, relentless waves, coating the streets, the rooftops, and the breath of every passerby. Yet none of it prepared Carter Whitmore for the call that jolted him from a brief moment of stillness in his office. "Mr. Whitmore," Mateo Ruiz said urgently, his voice sharp with panic. "A major heating failure just hit the Southside Distribution Center. Families are inside. Workers are trapped. The temperature is dropping fast." Carter straightened immediately, the weight of responsibility seizing him by the spine. "How many people?" "Enough that we need help now," Mateo replied. "No cameras, no press, just action." "I am on my way." Carter ended the call and grabbed his coat from the back of his chair. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights blurred beneath the falling snow, but he did not allow himself hesitation. Within minutes, he was in his car, cutting through the blizzard-choked streets toward the failing facility. As he neared the industrial district, he noticed several cars parked hastily along the road, their hoods dusted with snow. People stood outside the building, huddled together, breath clouding in front of their anxious faces. Fear hung in the air like a living thing. He stepped out of the car into the biting cold and pulled his coat tighter around him, moving quickly toward the entrance. That was when he saw her. Lily Bennett stood near the doorway, her hair dusted with snowflakes, her cheeks flushed from the freezing wind. She wore a thick wool coat and heavy boots, yet even wrapped in winter layers, she radiated a warmth that drew his gaze instinctively. Her gloved hands were guiding frightened workers inside a temporary shelter, her voice calm and steady despite the chaos. "Lily!" he called out. She turned sharply, her eyes widening in surprise, before softening into something he felt in his chest. Relief, perhaps, or something deeper, something that crossed the boundary of professional concern. "You came!" she said, breathless from the cold and the urgency around them. "Of course I came," he answered, moving to her side. "What happened?" She shook her head, frustration tightening her features. "The heating system just died. No warning. The backup generator failed too. We have families inside with young children. Some were working late, others were living in the attached housing units. They have nowhere else to go, and the temperature inside is dropping dangerously." Her voice trembled, not from fear but from determination. She was fighting for them with every fiber of her being. "Show me," Carter said gently. She led him inside the building, where the frigid air felt even more punishing. Emergency lights flickered weakly overhead, casting long shadows across the concrete floors. People were gathered in large groups, wrapped in blankets, holding on to one another. A few volunteers were handing out warm drinks, though the warmth was fading quickly in the icy room. The sight pierced him deeply. "We need portable heaters, blankets, emergency medical support," Lily said, her voice quick and focused. "Mateo is coordinating volunteers, but the storm is slowing everything. I can call in additional resources," Carter replied, already reaching for his phone, but it may take time for them to get through the snow. Lily nodded, pressing her lips together. Then we do what we can until they arrive. They moved into a smaller corridor where the air felt even colder. The lights flickered again, and for a moment, darkness threatened to swallow them. Lily paused, leaning against the wall as she inhaled sharply. "Are you all right?" Carter asked softly. She nodded, though her breath formed shaky clouds. "Just catching up." He stepped closer, careful not to overwhelm her, yet unable to resist the instinct to protect her. His voice lowered, carrying a gentleness rarely seen in his world. "Lily, you should be somewhere warm. You have been out here too long." Her eyes lifted to his, shining with that fierce conviction he admired. "These people are scared, Carter. I cannot leave them." "I did not say they do not need you," he murmured, "only that you deserve warmth, too." The faintest smile touched her lips. "I am warmer than you think." For a moment, despite the freezing cold, heat rushed between them. Their breath mingled in the frigid air, their hearts beating in a rhythm neither had agreed to, yet both felt. The generator hummed weakly above them, as if straining to hold the moment still. Then Mateo approached, breaking the spell. "Mr. Whitmore, Ms. Bennett, a section of the East Wing is still full. We need to move people out before the temperature drops any further." "I will help," Carter said immediately. Lily hesitated. "You do not have to," but he cut her off, his voice steady and filled with emotion. He did not bother hiding. "Yes, I do." Together they hurried to the East Wing. The rooms there were colder, the air sharp enough to sting their lungs. Carter found himself guiding families, lifting boxes of supplies, wrapping blankets around shivering shoulders. Lily worked beside him tirelessly, soothing frightened children with gentle words, encouraging exhausted workers to keep moving. Each time Carter looked at her, he felt something tighten inside him. Her courage was not loud or dramatic. It was steady, unshakable, a flame that refused to be extinguished even in the coldest night. He had never known someone like her, someone who moved through hardship with tenderness and steel woven together. At one point, he noticed Lily struggling with a stack of emergency thermal packs. He moved beside her, taking half the load. "You should let me carry the heavier ones," he said softly. She shook her head. "I can manage." "I know," he replied, gazing at her with quiet intensity. "But you do not have to do everything alone." Her breath caught, visible in the icy air. Their hands brushed, and though both wore gloves, the contact sparked something unmistakable. Their eyes locked. "Carter," she whispered, as though his name were a confession. He stepped closer, the weight of the moment drawing them together as naturally as gravity. "Lily," he murmured, "I am here. I am not walking away." For a breath, for a heartbeat, the cold around them melted into something warm, fragile, and impossibly intimate. The world narrowed to the space between their lips, the quiet pull neither could resist. Then a door slammed at the far end of the hallway, breaking the moment. Lily blinked, stepping back, her cheeks flushed in the dim light. "We should finish moving these," she said quickly. He nodded, though disappointment pulsed through him. Still he followed her, and together they continued the work until every person had been evacuated to a safer, warmer area. By the time the portable heaters finally arrived, the worst of the crisis had passed, but exhaustion weighed heavily on the room. Carter watched Lily kneel beside an elderly woman, adjusting a blanket around her shoulders with gentle care. "You are safe now," Lily said softly, her voice warm as a promise. The woman smiled tremulously. "Thank you, dear. You have an angel's heart." Lily offered a soft laugh, shy and touched, then rose to her feet as Carter approached. "You did more tonight than most people in my position ever would," she told him. He shook his head, his voice low. "I followed you. You set the tone. You guided everyone. I only tried to keep up." Lily looked at him with something fragile, something tender. "You do not need to chase anyone, Carter. Not when you are capable of standing exactly where you are and making a difference. He hesitated, then reached out slowly, brushing his fingers against the edge of her sleeve. The touch was so light, yet it trembled between them like a confession. "Lily," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "every time I see you, I feel as though I am standing on the edge of something I do not fully understand." Her breath caught. "Carter?" He leaned in slightly, his forehead nearly touching hers, the warmth of his breath skating across her chilled skin. "Tell me I am not imagining this." Her eyes softened with the truth she could not hide. "You are not." Silence enfolded them, thick with everything they could not say and everything they longed to. But before the moment could deepen, Matteo's voice echoed through the space. "Miss Bennet! Mr. Whitmore! We need you both here!" Lily stepped back, the ache in her eyes mirroring his own. "We should go," Carter nodded, forcing his heart to steady. Yet as they walked side by side into the next room, he felt a new truth settle into his bones, warm and undeniable. Something had shifted tonight. Something had ignited. The storm had quieted by morning, leaving Chicago wrapped in a blanket of crystalline white. The city looked peaceful on the surface, but the cold still lingered in the air, sharp and unforgiving. Inside Whitmore Tower, however, warmth radiated from polished floors and golden lights. The contrast felt almost cruel to Carter as he walked through the marble lobby, replaying every moment from the night before. He had not slept, not truly. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw Lily in the dim corridors of the freezing facility, her breath forming little clouds as she moved with tireless urgency. He felt again the warmth of her whispered sincerity, her hand brushing his, the fragile promise contained in that near kiss. Something inside him had shifted, opened, awakened, and he could not return to who he had been before. He stepped into his office and found a stack of documents waiting for him on his desk. Financial briefings, public relations drafts, projections from the crisis. None of it moved him. All he could think about was Lily and the truth she carried in her eyes like a flame. A soft knock sounded on the door. "Come in," he said. His assistant stepped inside, her expression careful. "Mr. Whitmore, Miss Bennet is requesting a private meeting. She is waiting in the cafe across the street. She said it is urgent." "Indeed." A rush of warmth spread through him at the mention of Lily's name, cutting through the heavy fatigue. He thanked the assistant, grabbed his coat, and headed outside. The cold met him immediately, crisp and invigorating. He crossed the street quickly, entering the small cafe tucked beneath an old brick building. Its windows were fogged from the warmth inside, and the scent of roasted coffee wrapped him in a soothing embrace. Then he saw her. Lily sat near the corner, her fingers wrapped around a steaming mug, her posture poised but tense. She looked up as he approached, and for a moment everything else faded. Her dark hair fell in loose waves after the night's exertion, softening her features. Her eyes, still a little tired, held a depth that struck him every time. "Carter," she said softly, "thank you for coming." He sat opposite her, unable to hide the warmth in his voice. "There is nowhere else I would rather be." Her breath faltered just barely at the sincerity in his tone. The server approached to offer menus, but Carter waved them off gently. "We are fine, thank you." Lily inhaled deeply, gathering her thoughts. "I wanted to see you because last night was difficult for many reasons." She lowered her gaze, as though searching for steady ground. "I do not regret anything we did. Helping those families was the only thing that mattered." "It was," he agreed softly, "and you were extraordinary." A faint pink rose in her cheeks. "I was doing my job." "No," he said, leaning forward, "you were doing something far more human." Her eyes lifted, meeting his. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Lily swallowed slowly, returning to her purpose. "But that is not why I asked to meet." Carter straightened, sensing her shift. "There are rumors circulating," she continued carefully, "about your engagement." His chest tightened. "Lily," she raised a hand gently, "please, let me speak." He nodded, though his heart beat louder than the clinking mugs around them. "I need to understand the truth, Carter," she said, "because while I am fully committed to helping the workers, I will not allow myself to be blindsided. Not by the board, not by the media." Her voice softened into something vulnerable. "And not by you." The words pierced him deeply. He reached for the edge of the table as though grounding himself. "I did not mean for you to feel blindsided. You deserve honesty." "Then give it to me," she whispered. "All of it, please." He exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of transparency settle onto his shoulders. "There is pressure for the engagement to happen, immense pressure, from the board, from my mother, from people who believe image is worth more than truth." Lily searched his face. "And what do you believe?" His answer rose before he could stop it. "I believe that last night, when you and I were standing in the cold, I felt more alive than I have in years." Her lips parted in a quiet breath, her eyes shimmering with emotion. The cafe around them blurred, as though the world had drawn back to give them this moment. He continued, his voice low. "I do not want an engagement built on obligation. I do not want a life shaped by fear, and I do not want a future that has no place for you in it." Lily looked stunned, and for a moment she seemed unable to speak. Her heartbeat echoed visibly at the base of her throat. "Carter?" she murmured. "You barely know me." "I know enough," he replied gently. "I know your integrity. I know your courage. I know the way you look at someone when you believe they deserve better, and I know that when I am near you, I feel something I have not felt in a very long time." Her gaze softened, her breath trembling. "You cannot make promises like that, not now." "I am not making promises," he said. "I am telling you the truth." The air thickened, charged with something fragile and dangerous. Lily lowered her eyes, but her hand drifted unconsciously toward the center of the table. Carter noticed the movement, and without thinking, he reached out lightly, brushing the back of her fingers with his. The touch was soft, fleeting, but it carried the weight of unspoken longing. She did not pull away. "Carter," she whispered, "whatever is happening between us, it cannot interfere with the work I have to do, and it cannot become another reason for the board to attack me." "I would never allow that," he said firmly. "You might not have a choice," she replied gently. "They hold the power, not me, and not you right now." He leaned in closer, captivated by the sorrow in her voice. "You underestimate your strength, and you underestimate the danger of wanting something you cannot have," she murmured. He held her gaze, refusing to back down. "I do not believe you are something I cannot have." Her breath hitched. Then she gently withdrew her hand, though the tremor in her fingers betrayed how much effort it took. "Carter," she said softly, "we must be careful. We must be focused. Lives depend on the decisions you make and the guidance I offer. Allowing emotions to cloud this work." She paused, clearly struggling. "It could destroy everything." A tense silence settled between them. Carter watched her, sensing the inner conflict tearing at her resolve. He admired her even more for it. "Lily," he said tenderly, "I am not asking for anything you cannot give. I simply want honesty, and I want to know if what I feel is only mine, or if you feel it too." Her eyes glistened. "You know I do." His heart surged with quiet triumph, but she lifted a finger to stop him. "Wanting something," she whispered, "does not make it wise." He exhaled shakily, but he understood. Lily Bennett was not someone who would allow herself to be swept away without considering the consequences. That truth only made him want her more. She gathered her folder and stood slowly. "I should return to the negotiations. There is much to prepare." Carter rose as well, stepping beside her. "I will walk you out." They exited the cafe into the crisp winter air. Snow crunched beneath their boots, and the wind swirled gently around them. Lily lifted her face to the sky for a moment, as if gathering courage. Then she turned to him. "Thank you for meeting me," she said quietly. "Thank you for asking," he replied. Their eyes met once more, full of unspoken promises, restrained longing, and fear of everything the world might take from them. And then, with a soft breath that carried both hope and heartbreak, Lily stepped away. Carter watched her walk toward the building across the street, her silhouette blending into the winter light. He felt the cold settle around him, but inside, something warm pulsed steadily. She had not accepted him. She had not rejected him. She had simply asked him to choose the right path, and that truth alone was enough to ignite something fierce within him, something that refused to be extinguished. The night of the gala arrived with a lavishness that seemed almost surreal after the harshness of the previous days. Chicago glowed beneath a clear winter sky, the stars shimmering faintly above the towering skyline. Outside the historic Whitmore Foundation Hall, sleek black cars pulled up one after another, releasing elegantly dressed guests into a world of golden lights, velvet ropes, and crisp, crystalline air. Inside, the hall transformed into a spectacle worthy of a society magazine cover. Crystal chandeliers cascaded from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls, bathing the marble floors in a warm, amber glow. A string ensemble played near the grand staircase, their melodic notes weaving a hushed romantic spell over the crowd. Servers in immaculate uniforms moved gracefully through the room, carrying silver trays filled with champagne flutes and delicacies plated like miniature works of art. This was the world Carter Whitmore had been born into. Tonight, however, it felt foreign to him, like a play unfolding around him while he remained trapped behind the curtain. He stood near the entrance, dressed in a tailored black tuxedo that fit him with effortless perfection. His hair was neatly styled, his expression composed, but beneath the polish lay a man far more restless than anyone could guess. He scanned the room automatically, noting the familiar faces of donors, politicians, and influential executives. Yet none of them held his attention. He felt the need for someone else entirely, someone whose presence had unsettled the rhythm of his world. Lily. He had not seen her since their meeting at the cafe. Their conversations from that morning echoed through him still. Each word, each look, each unspoken truth, tightening the threads of something neither of them dared to define. A murmur rippled through the crowd, followed by a shift in the room's energy. Carter turned, just as Vivian Caldwell made her entrance. Her gown shimmered under the chandelier's glow, a deep sapphire blue that hugged her tall figure elegantly. Her blonde hair fell in polished waves, and her smile was perfectly poised as she greeted guests with the confidence of a woman who expected admiration. She spotted Carter immediately, and approached with graceful steps. "Carter," she said warmly, brushing a hand against his arm. "You look absolutely impeccable tonight." "Thank you," he replied with polite restraint. "You look lovely as well." Vivian's smile deepened. "Shall we greet the donors together? Everyone is eager to see us." He hesitated. "In a moment. I need to check something first." She tilted her head, eyes narrowing for a fraction of a second. "Of course. I will be nearby." As she walked away, Carter exhaled silently and scanned the room again. His heart stopped mid-beat. Lily had arrived. She stood near the periphery of the ballroom, her hands clasped lightly in front of her, her posture poised yet subtly hesitant. She wore a simple but elegant dress of deep charcoal, its clean lines complementing her figure without ostentation. A wool coat draped over her arm, reminding him of the world she came from, a world of purpose, sincerity, and grit. Her hair had been swept into a soft, low style that framed her face with a quiet beauty that outshone every jewel in the room. She looked breathtaking, and completely unaware of the effect she had on him. Their eyes met across the glittering expanse, and Carter felt a sudden rush of heat beneath his collar. Lily's lips parted slightly, as if surprised to see him so openly watching her. Something fragile yet powerful passed between them, something neither could disguise. He moved toward her without thinking. When he reached her, the world around them blurred into distant music and murmurs. "Lily," he breathed, his voice low and warm. "You came." Her fingers tightened around her coat. "I almost did not. This is not exactly my kind of event. It suits you more than you think." She lifted a skeptical eyebrow. "I doubt that." He smiled faintly, unable to resist the pull of her presence. "You belong anywhere you choose to be." Her gaze softened, a flicker of emotion crossing her features. She lowered her voice. "Thank you, but I am not here for glamour. I came to speak with several donors about emergency funds for the workers." Carter nodded, admiration settling into every part of him. "Then let me help. Anything you need tonight, tell me." She hesitated, then whispered, "Just be honest with me. That is all I ask." He felt the words settle over him like a vow. Vivian reappeared at that moment, her smile dazzling as always. "Lily Bennet," she greeted smoothly, extending a manicured hand. "What a pleasant surprise to see you here." Lily accepted the handshake with respectful restraint. "Miss Caldwell." Vivian's gaze flicked subtly between Lily and Carter, her eyes sharp with assessment. "I hope you are enjoying the evening." "I am here for work, not entertainment," Lily replied calmly. Vivian's smile tightened. "Of course, you are always so dedicated." Before the tension could deepen, Carter interjected, his voice firm but polite. "Excuse me, I need to speak with Lily privately." Vivian's expression faltered just for a breath before she smoothed it back into elegance. "Certainly, I will be nearby." She walked away, though her posture betrayed her displeasure. Carter turned back to Lily, the warm light casting shadows across her features. "May I walk with you?" he asked softly. She nodded. They moved through the ballroom together, a path opening effortlessly before them. Guests whispered as they passed, curious, intrigued, perhaps even scandalized by the sight of the billionaire and the advocate walking side by side. Carter guided them toward a quieter corridor, illuminated only by wall sconces. The hum of music faded behind them. "Lily," he began, "I need to say something." She stopped and faced him, her expression unreadable. "What is it?" He stepped closer, just enough to feel the warmth of her breath. "I keep thinking about last night. The cold, the chaos, the fear, and how you carried yourself through all of it." His voice softened to a near whisper. "You were extraordinary. I have never seen someone lead with such grace." Her gaze lowered, humility coloring her features. "I was just trying to help. You did much more than that." He reached out slowly, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "You reminded me of who I want to be." Lily's breath trembled at the touch, though she did not move away. "Carter, this is dangerous." "I know," he murmured, "but I cannot lie to myself, not anymore." Her eyes rose to meet his, filled with longing and fear in equal measure. "I do not want to be anyone's weakness." "You are not my weakness," he whispered. "You are the one thing that makes me feel stronger." Their hearts beat in tandem, the corridor shrinking around them. Carter's hand hovered near hers, inches from touching, trembling with the desire he fought to contain. Lily blinked slowly, her voice barely a breath. "Carter, we are standing in your world. Everyone here watches you, judges you, expects you to behave a certain way. I do not belong in this place." He stepped even closer, his eyes searching hers with tenderness so deep it almost hurt. "You belong with me." The words hung in the air, like a fragile truth neither had been ready to say aloud. Lily's lips parted, her heart visibly pounding beneath the soft fabric of her dress. "Carter," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly, "do not say things you cannot protect." His thumb brushed her knuckles, sending a tremor through both of them. "Then let me protect them." Her breath caught, her body swaying imperceptibly toward him. Then the music from the ballroom swelled, drifting into the corridor like a warm invitation. Carter extended his hand, palm open, eyes full of hope. "Dance with me." Lily hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, with a tenderness that felt like a promise. He led her into the edge of the ballroom, where the lights dimmed softly, and the floor gleamed beneath their feet. As the music surrounded them, Carter drew her close, one hand at her waist, the other guiding her gently. Lily rested her hand on his shoulder, her touch delicate yet steady. Their bodies moved with a rhythm neither had spoken, but both instinctively felt. Every step tightened the invisible thread between them. Every breath deepened their connection. Every look asked a silent question neither dared to answer fully. "Lily," he whispered near her ear, "you undo me." She trembled in his arms. "You make me feel things I should not feel." He drew back just enough to see her face, lit by the soft glow of chandeliers. "Tell me you do not want this." Her eyes glistened, her voice barely audible. "I cannot." His hand traveled lightly down her spine, stopping at the small of her back, holding her close, yet tenderly. The warmth of his touch surged through her like a confession of its own. They danced as if the world had vanished, as if time itself held its breath to watch them. But the world had not vanished. Eyes watched, hearts speculated, energy shifted, and as the final note of the song faded, Carter felt the truth resonate through him with painful clarity. He did not just want Lily Bennet. He needed her. He needed the way she grounded him, the way she saw him, the way she breathed humanity back into the spaces where his heart had grown numb. But when the song ended, Lily slowly stepped away, her chest rising with unsteady breaths. "Carter," she whispered, "we should stop. I do not want to stop." She closed her eyes, fighting the emotion quivering in her voice. "That is exactly why we must." Before he could respond, she turned and walked toward the exit, her dress brushing softly against the polished floor, her silhouette fading into the warm, golden haze. Carter remained standing in the quiet shadow of the ballroom, the ghost of her touch burning on his skin, his heart racing with a truth he could no longer deny. He was falling for her, irrevocably, uncontrollably, completely. Morning dawned over Chicago with the faintest hint of rose-gold light, brushing the skyline with deceptive softness. The winter air remained sharp, cold enough to sting lungs and frost windows, yet inside the city's countless screens, a fire had ignited. Not a literal one, but a blaze of rumors, headlines, and carefully crafted accusations. It spread fast, devouring truth and leaving ash in its wake. Lily Bennet woke to the sound of her phone buzzing repeatedly against her nightstand. At first she assumed it was another early update about the workers' situation or a morning message from Matteo, but when she glanced at the screen, her stomach tightened. Article links, anonymous emails, social media screenshots, all of them about her. She sat up slowly, her breath catching as she opened the first headline. "Community organizer linked to billionaire scandal. Advocate accused of manipulating negotiations for personal gain." Lily closed her eyes, pressing a trembling hand to her forehead. She clicked another. "Is Lily Bennet the reason Carter Whitmore refuses agreement? Sources claim emotional interference." Her heart pounded painfully. The articles were laced with insinuations, twisting harmless photos, taking her presence at the gala out of context, framing her as a scheming opportunist trying to influence decisions for her own benefit. Anonymous sources whispered lies about her ambition, her secret relationship, her ulterior motives. And worst of all, some of the comments beneath the posts accused her of using the workers to gain attention. Her throat tightened. That was the cut that hurt the deepest. A knock snapped her out of her spiraling thoughts. "Lily, you awake?" Matteo's voice sounded muffled through the door of her small apartment. Lily forced herself to stand, pulling on a sweater. When she opened the door, Matteo's expression told her he already knew. He held up his phone. "You have seen it, right?" She nodded, trying to steady her breathing. "I am so sorry," he murmured, pulling her into a brief but grounding embrace. "This is targeted. Someone crafted this to hit you where it hurts." "I know," she whispered, stepping back, "but knowing does not make it easier." Matteo sighed deeply. "We will fight this, Lily, just like every other injustice." She hoped he was right, but a shadow of doubt crept into her heart as she turned away to collect herself. She had survived worse storms, but this one was tied to something far more dangerous. Her heart. a heart she had foolishly allowed to drift toward a man whose world could swallow hers without hesitation. As if summoned by her thoughts, her phone buzzed again, this time with a single name flashing on the screen. Carter Whitmore. Her heart squeezed painfully. She let the phone ring twice before answering. "Lily," he said, breathless with urgency, "I just saw the articles. Are you all right?" His voice wrapped around her like a warm coat against the cold morning. She swallowed hard. "I am fine," she lied. "It comes with the territory." "No, it does not," he said firmly. "This is an attack. Calculated. Cruel." She sank onto her small sofa. "People will believe whatever they want, and some will gladly believe the worst. Not about you," he said with an intensity that made her close her eyes. "Lily, I am coming over." "No," she said quickly. "You cannot. The press is probably already watching your every step. If someone sees you here, it will feed the story." He paused, then spoke more quietly. "Then meet me, somewhere no one knows." She exhaled shakily. "Where?" "I will send you an address." Before she could protest, he added gently, "Please, I cannot sit still knowing you are hurting." Her breath hitched. She hated how much those words affected her. She hated how easily he reached the places of her heart she tried so hard to barricade. But most of all, she hated how desperately she wanted to see him, just to feel a moment of comfort in a world that suddenly felt hostile. "All right," she whispered. By late morning, Lily arrived at a quiet industrial loft overlooking the river. She entered through a side door Carter had unlocked remotely, her heart pounding as she walked inside. The space was open, filled with natural light from floor-to-ceiling windows. It was not a home. It felt like a retreat, a place he used to escape suffocating expectations. Carter stood near the window, his silhouette framed by the pale winter sun. He turned the moment he heard her footsteps. "Lily." She froze. The way he said her name, soft, aching, reverent, almost unraveled her. He crossed the room with long, determined strides, until he stood just inches away. His eyes searched hers, dark with concern. "Why did you not call me sooner?" he asked quietly. She forced a small, sarcastic smile. "I figured you had enough crises to handle. Not one of them matters more than you." Her breath caught, her heart stumbling in her chest. She looked away, needing space that she could not find. Carter gently reached for her hand. "Talk to me." Lily pulled her hand back, hugging her arms around herself instead. "I am angry, Carter, and I am scared." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I know." She lifted her chin, fighting the trembling in her throat. "They are turning the workers against me. They are turning the public against me. They are accusing me of something I would never do. And I will fix this." "No," she said sharply. "You cannot play the hero here. This is bigger than both of us. If you react, they will twist that too." He hesitated, then looked at her with a tenderness that melted her defenses. "Lily, do you think I care what they twist? I care about you." His hand hovered near her arm, fingers trembling with restraint. "Please, let me help." She met his gaze, seeing not the billionaire, not the public figure, but the man who had stood beside her in the cold, the man who had held her hand as if the world might shatter if he let go. And yet she shook her head. "You cannot solve this for me, and you should not. This attack is meant to isolate me. If you step in, it will only get worse." Carter exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening. "Then tell me what you need." Her voice softened. "I need you to understand that I can fight my battles. I am not fragile." His hand finally touched her arm, light enough that she could step away if she wanted to. She did not. "You are the strongest person I have ever known," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "But even the strongest deserve someone standing with them." The warmth of his touch seeped into her, spreading through her chest like a balm. For a moment, she let herself lean into it, let herself feel the comfort she had denied all morning. Then a soft knock sounded on the door. Both turned sharply. "It is Matteo," Carter said, recognizing the voice. He opened the door, and Matteo stepped inside, his expression grim. "I found something," he said, without preamble. "The articles, the smear posts, they all traced back to a single PR firm." "Which one?" Lily demanded. Matteo glanced at Carter, hesitating. "Solstice Strategies." Carter's eyes narrowed. "That is the firm working with the board." Lily's stomach dropped. "Are you saying this entire campaign was orchestrated by people inside your company?" Matteo nodded. "And that is not all. The same firm has been feeding stories about your potential engagement." Lily's breath left her in a painful rush. She stepped back, pressing a hand to her chest. "So they are using me as a pawn," she whispered, "to control the narrative, to push you toward an alliance you do not want." Carter's fury was quiet but palpable, his posture sharpened, his voice turning steel. "They went after you because they believed it would force my hand." Lily shook her head, pacing across the room. "Carter, this is dangerous. You are too visible, too vulnerable." "And you are not?" he countered, his voice thick with emotion. "You are being attacked because of me." She stopped abruptly, turning to him with eyes filled with a storm of pain and longing. "Then we need distance." His breath hitched, as if the words struck physically. "No." "Yes," she insisted, even as her voice trembled. "They are weaponizing our connection. If you care about me, you will not let them destroy what I have built." Her voice cracked, betraying the depth of her struggle. For a moment, Carter stood frozen, torn between instinct and reason. Then slowly, painfully, he stepped forward and cupped her cheek with his hand. She closed her eyes, leaning into the touch even as new tears threatened to fall. "Lily," he whispered, "I do not know how to be distant from you. Not anymore." Her lips quivered. "You must try." He brushed his thumb gently along her cheekbone. "Tell me to walk away, and I will." Her eyes opened, shining with heartbreak. "I cannot tell you that," she whispered. "Then do not ask me to." Their breath mingled in the small space between them, warmth meeting warmth, pain meeting pain. The tension was electric, devastating, tender. His forehead almost touched hers, and for a moment the world narrowed to the two of them, wrapped in silence and trembling emotion. Finally Lily pulled away, though her heart seemed to stay behind. "We should go," she murmured. They left together, but the distance between their bodies felt far greater than the inches that separated them. Because love had begun to bloom, and the world had already sharpened its knives. The following day broke with a deceptive calm, sunlight casting delicate reflections across the surface of the Chicago River. The city seemed quieter than usual, the winter chill heavier, as though the air itself sensed the tension building beneath polished skyscrapers and corporate facades. Inside Whitmore Tower, that tension lived and breathed in every corridor. Carter Whitmore stood in his office staring at the skyline, one hand braced against the cold glass. His jaw was tight, his expression carved from stone, but his eyes revealed the truth. He refused to speak aloud. He was tired, not physically, emotionally, deeply. The smear campaign against Lily had struck him harder than he expected, not only because it was cruel, calculated, and unjust, but because it was meant to wound him through her. She had been attacked because of his name, his position, his world, and for the first time in his life, Carter felt the full weight of what his influence could ruin, or protect. A knock sounded at the door. "Come in," he murmured. Lily stepped inside. His breath caught. She wore a fitted winter coat in deep grey, her hair pulled back neatly, her eyes still carrying the exhaustion of the day before. Yet she held herself with the dignified strength he had come to admire intensely. Even bruised, she remained unbroken. "Good morning," she said quietly. He nodded, unable to hide the way he drank in her presence. "Thank you for coming." She offered a faint, cautious smile. "We have work to do." The distance in her tone stung more than he cared to admit. Still, he understood. She was protecting herself, protecting him, protecting the fragile thread between them. "Matteo said he found something important," she continued, stepping closer. "Something in the company's charter." "Yes," Carter replied, gesturing toward the large table where numerous documents had been spread across its surface. "Let's take a look." They walked together to the table, their shoulders brushing ever so slightly. The brief contact sent a shiver through him, and he wondered if she felt it too. He kept his focus on the papers, but his awareness of her presence pulsed in him like a second heartbeat. Lily leaned over the documents, her fingers moving with purpose as she scanned each page. Carter watched her for a moment, captivated by her concentration. He admired the way her brow furrowed when she was deep in thought, the way she bit the corner of her lip when wrestling with a complex idea. He forced himself to look away before his thoughts betrayed him. She finally stopped at a specific page. "Here," Lily said softly. "This is it." Carter stepped beside her, close enough to catch the faint scent of her perfume, something gentle and warm, like amber drifting in the air. Lily pointed to the section. "This clause. It was added after your father passed away. Look at the wording." Carter read slowly, the realization unfolding like a chilling whisper down his spine. "Emergency leadership transition in the event of reputational risk. Authority granted to the board to override standard protocols. Activation contingent upon public instability and perceived corporate continuity threats." He looked up sharply. This gives the board power to remove me." Lily nodded, her eyes somber. "Yes, and given everything happening, including the manufactured scandals, they could argue that your leadership is compromised." His chest tightened painfully. "They are using the crisis to push me out. Or force your compliance," she added, her voice thickening with emotion, "especially regarding the engagement." Carter exhaled slowly, fury simmering beneath the surface. The deception, the manipulation, the lack of loyalty from people he trusted, it struck at the core of his identity. "And the firm behind the smear campaign," Lily continued softly, "is tied to 2 board members. They want control of your company. The engagement with Vivian is a pawn. You are a pawn." Her voice shook with restrained anger. "And I am the collateral damage." He turned to her, the emotions he had held back bursting to the surface. "Lily, I swear to you, I will not let them hurt you. Not for this, not for anything." She looked at him, her dark eyes shimmering with something too raw to disguise. "Carter, you cannot promise that." "I can," he insisted, stepping closer. "I will. Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Do not make vows you cannot keep. I cannot lose myself in someone else's battle." Her vulnerability struck him like a blow. He lifted his hand slowly, gently brushing his fingers along her arm. "You are not someone else in my battle. You are the person who showed me what justice looks like, what integrity looks like, what courage looks like." Her breath caught. His fingers trailed upward, stopping just below her shoulder, his touch lingering with reverence. "You are not the collateral damage in my story. You are the reason I want to fight." The emotion in her eyes was overwhelming, shimmering with truth she was afraid to speak. "Carter," she whispered. A plea, a warning, a surrender all at once. He stepped closer until their bodies neared, the space between them charged with unspoken longing. He lowered his voice to a tender murmur. "Tell me you feel nothing. Tell me this is one-sided. Tell me, and I will walk away." Her lips parted, trembling. "I cannot tell you that." Carter's heart surged, warmth blooming through him like fire. She looked away, blinking rapidly. "But wanting something does not make it right." He reached out, gently lifting her chin so her eyes met his again. "Nothing has ever felt more right to me." The intensity between them deepened, the air thickening with a sensuality that lived entirely in their nearness, their breath, the way their eyes locked as though they were the only 2 people in existence. Lily exhaled shakily. "We must stay focused, on the clause, on the company, on the workers." He nodded, though his gaze remained tethered to hers. "We will, but I will not pretend this, whatever this is, does not exist." She stepped back, reclaiming her composure with visible effort. "Then let us handle one crisis at a time." Carter forced himself to turn toward the documents, though every cell in his body wanted to close the distance between them again. Lily studied the pages with unwavering attention. This clause is dangerous. It gives them justification. They could claim the smear campaign is proof you are unfit. But the smear campaign is fabricated, Carter countered, fury rising again. And yet perception matters, she replied, especially when those shaping perception are the same ones benefiting from it. He ran a hand through his hair. Frustration etched into the lines of his face. My father would never have allowed this. Lily reached out and placed a gentle hand on his forearm. The world went still. Her touch was light, soft, grounding. You are not your father, she said softly. You cannot carry his decisions as though they are chains around your neck. Her thumb brushed once, almost imperceptibly, against his sleeve. You are a good man, Carter. Do not let them convince you otherwise. He looked at her, emotion thickening his voice. You believe that? I do, she whispered. More than you know. Their gazes held, warm and fragile and desperately sincere. Then the office door opened abruptly. Eleanor Whitmore stepped inside, her presence cold, elegant and commanding. She froze when she saw how close Carter and Lily stood. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw stiffening. Carter, she said sharply, we need to speak. Lily immediately withdrew her hand, stepping away with professional poise. I should go, she murmured. No, Carter said instinctively, his voice too quick, too emotional. Lily stopped, stunned. Eleanor's eyes sharpened even more. Yes, I believe Miss Bennet has work outside this office. Lily lifted her chin with dignified calm. Mr. Whitmore, I will review these documents and coordinate with Matteo. We can reconvene later. Carter wanted to protest, to pull her back, to shield her from every sharp edge of this world. But he saw the plea in her eyes. Not here, not now. He nodded reluctantly. I will see you soon. Lily offered a faint, bittersweet smile, then left the office, closing the door softly behind her. Eleanor turned to her son, her voice icy. Carter, this cannot continue. He inhaled slowly, steadying himself. Whatever you are about to say, Mother, do not. She ignored him. Your future, your legacy, everything this family built, it is at risk. And it is because of that woman. His voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. Do not speak about her that way. Eleanor stared at him, taken aback. Carter, she will ruin you. No, he said firmly, his gaze hardening with a strength Eleanor had rarely seen in him. She is the only one trying to save what matters. Eleanor opened her mouth to argue, but Carter turned away, gathering the documents with calm determination. The clause had been found, the truth had been revealed, and Lily Bennet had become the quiet force he could no longer ignore. Outside the office, Lily walked down the corridor, her heart pounding in her chest. Her hand still tingled from where she had touched him, where he had almost pulled her back, where their truths had nearly collided. She inhaled deeply, steadying herself. This was not the life she had planned, but it was the life that had found her. Snow drifted softly over Chicago that evening, turning the city into a quiet landscape of silver light and muted sounds. Traffic hummed beneath the falling flakes, but the streets seemed gentler beneath the winter veil. Inside Lily Bennet's modest apartment, the atmosphere was anything but gentle. Papers were spread across her coffee table in organized stacks. Notes, legal codes, copies of the clause Matteo had discovered, reports from workers, emails from donors. The weight of everything pressing on her shoulders made her exhale slowly, as though she had to push air past an invisible wall inside her chest. Her small lamp cast a warm glow across the room, illuminating the subtle tremble in her hands as she reviewed each document. She was exhausted, but the exhaustion was not physical. It was emotional, carved deep into her bones. The smear campaign had slowed, but not stopped. Her name still trended in comment sections and whispered conversations. Accusations continued to echo through social media. Rumors had spread like dark tendrils, but none of that hurt as sharply as the moment Eleanor Whitmore had stepped into the office earlier that day. Lily had seen the cold fury in the woman's eyes. She had felt the warning in her voice. She had sensed the threat underneath it. Eleanor did not want her near Carter, and she was not the only one. A knock on the door jolted Lily out of her thoughts. Her breath hitched. For a moment, her heart dared to hope it was Carter, but when she peeked through the peephole, she froze. Vivian Caldwell stood in the hallway. Her sapphire coat glistened slightly from the snow. Her blonde hair was pulled into a sleek chignon. Her expression was calm, composed, and terrifyingly controlled. Lily unlocked the door cautiously. "Miss Caldwell," she said, "this is unexpected." Vivian smiled, polite but sharp. "May I come in?" Lily hesitated for a heartbeat, then stepped aside. She would not let fear dictate her actions. She would never give anyone that power. Vivian entered with the grace of someone accustomed to dominating a room. Her eyes traveled over the humble space, cataloguing everything with practiced ease, though she disguised it behind her polished demeanor. "Tea?" Lily asked, folding her arms. "No, thank you," Vivian replied. "This will not take long." Her voice carried the same tone she had used at the gala, calm, pleasant, and hiding something dangerous beneath its smooth surface. "I came to speak woman to woman," Vivian said, removing her gloves slowly. "Not as a representative of the board, not as a member of Chicago's elite." Lily waited. Vivian's eyes sharpened. "You and I both know the rumors circulating are damaging. To the company, to Carter, and most of all, to you." Lily lifted her chin. "I am aware." And yet," Vivian continued, "you continue working closely with him. You continue being present in situations that weaken his position. You continue to be seen." Lily felt the sting, but she remained steady. "My work does not stop because people choose to lie." Vivian stepped closer, her voice lower. "This is not about lies. This is about optics, influence, legacy. You are intelligent enough to understand that." Lily held her gaze. "Say what you came here to say." Vivian paused, as though weighing how direct she should be. Then she chose precision. "You are interfering." The words hit like a slap. Lily's jaw tensed. "I am doing my job." "You are distracting him from his," Vivian countered, "from his responsibilities, from the expectations placed upon him by his family, his investors, and his board." "My presence does not strip Carter of his agency," Lily said coldly. Vivian gave a soft, pitying smile. "Oh, Lily, you are naive if you think this story ends with the two of you overcoming the world." She stepped closer, her eyes piercing. "Carter lives inside a cage made of gold, family, and legacy. You, Lily Bennett, do not fit inside that cage." The words sliced through the space. Lily inhaled sharply. "This is not your decision to make." "No," Vivian agreed, "but the world has already made it for you." A long silence stretched. Then Vivian presented an envelope. Lily stared at it. "What is that?" "An offer," Vivian said calmly. "A substantial donation to your foundation, enough to support your workers' programs for several years." Lily did not touch the envelope. "In exchange for what?" Vivian's voice softened, almost sympathetic. "For stepping away." A tremor ran through Lily's body, tightening her throat. "You want me to walk away from Carter?" "I am offering you a chance to preserve what you have built," Vivian replied. "Because if you stay near him, the board will destroy you, and eventually they will destroy him too." Lily felt her breath breaking. Anger swirled, pain followed, but beneath it all was something deeper, fear. Vivian took a slow step back. "Carter's future is tied to this company, to alliances, to stability, and whether you intend to or not, you have become his greatest vulnerability." Lily closed her eyes for a moment, her heart twisting painfully. Vivian's final words were quiet and lethal. "If you care about him, truly care about him, you will let him go." The door clicked shut behind Vivian as she left. Lily stood frozen, staring at the envelope on her table. Her heart pounded violently, as though trying to break free from the cruel bind that had tightened around her. A knock echoed again. This time her breath caught because she knew before checking the peephole. It was him. She opened the door slowly. Carter stood there, snow dusting the dark strands of his hair. His eyes, warm and intense, softened the moment they landed on her. "Lily," he murmured. Her throat tightened with emotion. "Carter, what are you doing here?" "I needed to see you," he said, stepping inside as she moved aside. "I could not stay away." The confession struck deep. He noticed the envelope on the table immediately. His expression darkened. "Who was here?" "Vivian," she whispered. Carter inhaled sharply. "What did she say?" Lily shook her head. "It does not matter." "Yes," he insisted, stepping closer. "It does." He reached gently for her hand, his touch soft and grounding. "Lily, talk to me." Her voice trembled. "She wants me to walk away from you." Silence fell heavy between them. Carter's jaw tightened. "Did she threaten you?" "No." Lily swallowed hard. "She offered money, donations, protection, for the workers." His eyes widened with fury. "She tried to buy you." Lily closed her eyes. She said, I am your weakness." Ooh, Carter stepped even closer, his chest rising with restrained emotion. "You are not my weakness." His voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "You are the only thing that makes me feel stronger." Lily felt tears burning her eyes. "Carter," she whispered, her voice breaking, "your world is suffocating you, and now it is suffocating me too." He cupped her face with both hands, his touch tender and aching. "I do not care what they say. I do not care what they want. I want you." Her breath trembled against his palms. The warmth of his touch seeped into her skin, melting every fragile resistance she fought to maintain. "Do you?" he asked softly, his forehead brushing hers. "Do you want me too?" Her whisper broke through the air like a confession. "I do. More than I should." His thumbs brushed her cheekbones, and for a moment the world stood still. "Then stay," he murmured. "Stay with me. We will fight this together." Her hands rose instinctively, gripping his wrists, holding him as though afraid he might vanish. "Carter," she whispered, "I cannot let your world destroy mine." "It will not," he vowed, his voice trembling. "I will protect you." Her tears finally fell, not from weakness, but from the overwhelming truth she could no longer avoid. "Carter," she said again, breathless, "you cannot promise that." He closed his eyes, pain carving into every line of his expression. She slid her hands gently down his arms, her touch lingering with heartbreaking tenderness. "You are a good man," Lily whispered, "but good men cannot always win against powerful systems." He opened his eyes, raw and pleading. "Lily, do not do this." Her heart shattered as she stepped back. "I need time," she whispered. "Just time." His hand reached for hers, but she gently pulled away, slowly, painfully, as though severing herself from something she desperately wanted to keep. "Lily," he breathed. "I'm not saying goodbye," she said softly. "I just need space to think, to breathe. Please understand." He looked at her with devastation and love, both fighting for dominance in his eyes. Finally, he nodded once, though it cost him everything. "If you need time," he said quietly, "I will give it to you." He walked to the door slowly, as though each step pulled threads from his chest. When he opened it, cold air swept inside, brushing against them like a harsh reminder of reality. He looked back at her one last time. "Do not shut me out," he whispered. "Please." Her voice cracked. "I will not." And then he was gone. Lily stood alone in her apartment, the silence pressing down on her as tears streamed freely down her cheeks. She pressed a trembling hand to her heart. She loved him, and she had no idea whether love would save them or break them both. Chapter 9. When silence hurts more than words. 3 days passed. Not 3 loud, chaotic days full of meetings and statements and strategy. Not 3 days in which the world paused to let hearts mend and wounds close. No, 3 quiet days. 3 painfully silent days. 3 days in which Lily Bennett and Carter Whitmore stayed one small breath away from reaching for each other, and one impossible decision away from falling apart completely. Lily threw herself into work. She met with workers, attorneys, and community liaisons. She organized emergency resources. She reviewed every document tied to the hidden clause. She tried desperately to drown her feelings in purpose. But every night, when she returned to her small apartment and closed the door behind her, the silence swelled around her like a bruise. Her heart, so fiercely disciplined, betrayed her by repeating his name with every heartbeat. Carter, Carter, Carter. She hated that his voice lingered in her memories. She hated that she still felt the ghost of his touch on her cheek, the warmth of his hands around hers, the way he whispered her name as though it carried pieces of him inside it. She hated that she missed him. On the fourth morning after their last meeting, the winter sky turned heavy and grey. Snow had not yet begun to fall, but the city felt suspended in anticipation, as if preparing for a storm. Lily sat in a small cafe near the workers' legal office, nursing a cup of coffee that had long gone lukewarm. Her mind drifted too easily, betraying her resolve. Every time the door chimed, she looked up, hoping. She closed her eyes tightly. She needed to stop doing this to herself. Then her phone buzzed. She nearly dropped it when she saw the name on the screen. Carter. Her pulse raced, a mix of longing and panic. For a moment she could not breathe. She waited until she steadied her voice before answering. "Hello?" There was no hesitation on his end. "Lily?" Her chest tightened. His voice was warm, low, and trembling slightly, not from weakness, but from an emotion she felt like a mirror inside her own heart. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. She swallowed. "I am managing. Busy." He exhaled, almost relieved to hear her voice. I have been thinking about you." Her grip on the phone tightened. "Carter," she whispered, "we said we needed time." "I know," he murmured. "I tried. God, I tried, Lily. But every hour felt like losing something I cannot afford to lose." Her breath faltered. She looked out the window as a cold wind swept the street. "What do you need?" "You," he breathed. Her eyes closed, her heart twisting painfully. "You cannot say things like that." "I can," he insisted quietly, "and I am saying it because it is true. Carter." He stopped her gently. "May I see you?" A long silence followed. Lily felt torn between the ache inside her chest and the fear that had taken root deep in her soul. But before she could answer, he spoke again, soft, careful, as though approaching a wounded creature. "I will come to you, anywhere you want. Just say the word." Her eyes glistened. She inhaled shakily. "There is a small walk path by the river," she whispered, "near Kinsey Street. In 30 minutes. "I will be there," he said immediately. And then the call ended. Lily pressed the phone to her chest, as though holding on to something fragile, something beautiful she was afraid of breaking. She bundled herself in her coat, stepped outside, and walked through the brisk Chicago wind until she reached the river walk. The sun peeked through the clouds in faint streaks, casting shimmering reflections on the icy water. She stood alone at the railing, her breath fogging in the cold air, her heart thundering beneath her coat. Minutes later, she heard soft, hurried footsteps behind her. She turned. Carter stood a few paces away, breathless from running, snowflakes caught in his dark hair. His eyes, those impossibly expressive eyes, found hers instantly. Relief washed over his face, raw and unmistakable. "Lily!" he whispered, as if saying her name were a prayer he had waited days to speak aloud. She froze, overwhelmed by how deeply she felt him in her very bones. He stepped forward slowly, as though afraid she might vanish. "You look tired," he said softly. "So do you," she replied. He gave a faint, rueful smile. "I have not slept much. Neither have I." Their honesty lingered between them, soft and painful. He reached toward her but stopped halfway, his fingers trembling slightly in the cold air. "I have missed you." Her breath caught. "Carter." "No," he murmured, his voice breaking slightly. "Please, let me say this. She nodded once, her eyes shining. "I know you needed time," he said, taking another careful step. "I know you feel caught in something that is not fair, and I hate that you were dragged into a world that treats people like you as if you are disposable." Lily's lips parted, emotion tightening her throat. "You are not disposable," he continued, his gaze intense. "You are not a problem. You are not a threat. You are the only person who has ever made me question everything I thought mattered." Wind swept past them, rustling her coat, brushing strands of hair across her cheek. He took a breath. "I am standing here because I cannot pretend I do not feel something for you. Something real, something terrifying, something I have never felt before." Her heart thudded violently. "And I do not want to keep running from it," he whispered. Her eyes glimmered with tears she refused to let fall. "Carter, I care about you too. You know that. But caring about you is hurting me." His expression crumpled softly, the pain evident. "Tell me how. Tell me, and I will fix it." "You cannot fix the world you live in," she said, her voice trembling. "You cannot fix the expectations crushing you. You cannot fix your family's ambitions or the board's manipulation." He stepped closer, desperation warming his voice. "But I can choose you." She shook her head, her tears finally slipping free. "And they will punish you for it. They are already punishing me." Her voice broke. "I am so tired of fighting battles I did not choose." Carter reached up, wiping her tear gently with the back of his knuckle. His touch was soft, reverent, devastating. "Lily," he whispered, his forehead gently leaning toward hers, "I do not want you to fight alone." Her breath trembled against his lips. "You should not want to fight at all." "I want you," he murmured, "not because you make life easier, but because you make it meaningful." A sob escaped her. "Do not say that. It is true." Her hands rose instinctively, grasping the front of his coat for balance. Their bodies neared, warm breath mingling in the cold air, the tension between them thick enough to ache. He closed his eyes, voice breaking into raw honesty. "I do not know how to stop falling for you." She pressed her forehead against his, the touch intimate and trembling. "Then what are we supposed to do?" she whispered. He slid his hands slowly, tenderly, along her arms until he held her elbows. "Let me love you," he breathed. "Let me try." Her lips parted, her heart racing with impossible longing. "Carter." He opened his eyes, searching hers with quiet desperation. "Tell me you do not feel this. Tell me, and I will walk away." Her voice came out as a fractured whisper. "I feel everything." Emotion surged in his gaze, warm and fierce and heartbreaking. He cupped her face gently, as though she were the most precious thing he had ever touched. His thumbs brushed her cheeks, his breath trembling against her skin. "Then let me in," he whispered. She exhaled a soft, broken sound that felt like surrender. Not because she was weak, not because she had given up, but because her heart, tired and overwhelmed and aching, knew one truth more powerful than all the threats surrounding them. She loved him. She loved him enough to fear losing him. She loved him enough to fear keeping him. She loved him enough to cry in his arms and still want to stay. Her whisper shattered in the cold air. "I am so scared." His arms wrapped around her instantly, pulling her gently but firmly against him. Her forehead fell to his chest. His hand cradled the back of her head. The embrace was tender, protective, devastatingly intimate. "I know," he murmured into her hair, "but I am right here." She held onto him, trembling, as the wind swept across the river. Her lips brushed against the fabric of his coat. His heart beat against her palm. The world felt impossibly fragile. But in that moment, in that quiet spot by the river, in that trembling embrace, in that soft exchange of breath and tenderness, they existed only for each other. And for the first time since the chaos began, silence no longer hurt. Silence felt like hope. Chicago woke under a sky the color of steel, the kind of winter morning that made the river look like a blade, and the sidewalks feel like a test of endurance. Snow did not fall, but cold hung in the air like a warning. The city moved anyway because Chicago always moved, even when its heart was bruised. In the quiet of his penthouse, Carter Whitmore stood before the mirror and fastened the last button of his suit jacket. It was charcoal wool, tailored so precisely it looked like armor. But today he did not feel armored. He felt exposed, as though the truth inside him had finally pushed through every layer of performance he had worn for years. He thought of Lily. He thought of her hands trembling when she admitted fear. He thought of the way she pressed her forehead to his, her breath mingling with his on the river walk, as if the cold could not reach them when they stood together. He thought of the soft sound she made when he held her, and how that single embrace had rearranged something permanent inside him. He checked his phone again, though there was no new message. He did not need one. They had spoken late into the night, not in grand speeches, but in quiet honesty. They had not promised a perfect future. They had promised presence. Carter stepped into the elevator and descended toward the waiting car, his chest tight with the gravity of what he was about to do. Today was not simply a board meeting. It was not merely corporate drama. Today would decide whether he remained a man led by legacy's leash or a man brave enough to choose his own life. The driver took him to headquarters through streets edged with ice. A handful of protesters remained outside the building, bundled in coats, holding signs with tired hands. Across the street, cameras waited, lenses angled like weapons. Reporters shifted their weight in the cold, hungry for a story that would feed the city's appetite for scandal. Carter looked at them through the tinted window and felt something strange. He did not feel fear. He felt resolve. Inside Whitmore Tower, the marble floors gleamed under bright lights, but the atmosphere was tense, thick with whispers and calculated smiles. Carter moved through the corridor toward the boardroom, his footsteps steady, his posture controlled. People greeted him too cheerfully. Others avoided his gaze. He recognized the difference immediately. Some were loyal to him. Some were loyal to power. When he entered the boardroom, the room fell into a tense silence. The long, polished table reflected faces that looked composed, but betrayed anxiety around the eyes. Graham Sutter sat near the center, papers neatly stacked. Two board members who had always smiled at Carter now wore expressions that leaned towards sympathy, as if he were already defeated. Eleanor Whitmore sat at the far end, a portrait of elegance in a tailored black suit. Pearls gleamed at her throat. Her hands rested neatly in front of her, but her gaze was sharp, assessing him with a mixture of maternal worry and iron resolve. And Vivian Caldwell sat beside her. Vivian's appearance was flawless, her posture regal, her expression calm. She looked like the solution the room wanted, like the ending they believed they deserved. Carter took his seat without greeting her. Graham cleared his throat. "We will begin." The meeting proceeded with corporate language that dressed cruelty in polished words. Profit margins, market confidence, brand optics, risk exposure. Carter listened, but his mind remained still, centered on one truth. They had used lies against Lily. They had tried to buy her. They had manufactured an emergency in the cold. They had hidden a clause to threaten him into obedience. Those were not coincidences. Those were crimes of character, whether or not they would ever be prosecuted in court. Graham leaned forward. "We have prepared a stability plan, a unified public announcement. We will address the labor situation, reaffirm leadership, and present a cohesive vision, a future. The public needs to see strength." Carter's gaze flicked briefly to Vivian. Then he looked back at the table. "Strength is not performance." A murmur rippled. Graham's eyes narrowed. "With respect, Carter, strength is survival." Eleanor's voice cut in, calm but commanding. "Carter, this is not the time to be sentimental." Carter inhaled slowly. He looked at his mother across the table. "Mother, this is exactly the time." Eleanor's lips tightened. "We can discuss feelings later." Carter's voice remained controlled, but warmth and pain threaded beneath it. "This has never been about feelings. It has been about control." Vivian lifted her chin slightly, her tone smooth. "Carter, everyone here wants what is best for you." Carter turned toward her. "No, everyone here wants what is best for the image they can sell." Vivian's smile held, but her eyes sharpened. "And what do you want?" He did not hesitate. "I want the truth to stop being treated like an inconvenience." Graham glanced down at his papers with forced patience. "Then let us proceed with the engagement announcement that will stabilize the company and allow room for reforms." Carter's pulse remained steady. He placed his hands on the table and leaned forward slightly, his gaze sweeping across every face. "I will not be announcing an engagement." Silence hit like a thunderclap. Eleanor stiffened. Vivian's composure shifted for a breath, the smallest crack in her mask. Graham's voice sharpened. "Carter!" Carter raised a hand, quieting him without raising his voice. "I am not finished." He pulled a folder from his briefcase and set it on the table. The movement was simple, yet it carried the weight of inevitability. He opened it and slid a document toward the center. "This," he said, "is the Emergency Leadership Transition Clause." Several eyes widened. One board member's fingers twitched. "I did not authorize it," Carter continued, his voice steady. "It was inserted after my father's death." Eleanor's gaze snapped to the page, a flicker of shock passing through her eyes. "Carter, what is this?" "It is the mechanism you used to trap me," he replied, and the pain in his tone was quiet but unmistakable. Graham leaned forward, trying to regain control. "That clause was a protective measure." Carter looked directly at him. "Protective measures do not require secrecy." He slid another set of papers forward. "These are communications between Solstice Strategies and members of this board." The room stiffened again, tighter this time. Graham's face hardened. "Where did you get those?" "I got them because I decided to stop trusting people who profit from my blindness," Carter said calmly. "Solstice Strategies orchestrated the smear campaign against Lily Bennett." At the mention of Lily's name, Eleanor's eyes flashed. Vivian's gaze sharpened with open fury for the first time. Carter's voice did not waver. "They also amplified engagement rumors. They pushed contradictory narratives to create chaos and pressure. It was not random. It was intentional." One board member scoffed. "You are making accusations without proof." Carter's eyes were cold. "You are reading proof." The air grew heavy. Someone shifted in their seat. Another board member stared down at the papers, suddenly unable to meet Carter's gaze. Eleanor's voice dropped, wounded. "Carter, why was Lily involved in this?" Carter turned toward his mother, softer now, but firm. "She was not involved. She was targeted, because she refuses to be manipulated, because she tells the truth." Eleanor's expression flickered with conflict. Fear battled pride behind her eyes. Vivian finally spoke, her voice still controlled but sharpened at the edges. "This is absurd. You are letting a woman outside your world convince you that everyone here is your enemy." Carter looked at Vivian with quiet clarity. "She did not convince me. My own eyes did." He leaned back slightly, the room still watching, still tense. "I am not stepping down. And I am not being forced into a public arrangement to satisfy investors." Graham's voice rose just slightly. "Then you leave us no choice. The clause exists for a reason." Carter's gaze narrowed. "Use it. And the communications in that folder will be handed to independent investigators, attorneys, and every journalist waiting downstairs. If you want war, you will get it, but you will not win it quietly." The room froze. Carter felt his own heartbeat, steady and grounded. He had never spoken like this before. He had never allowed his own will to rise above legacy's demands, and yet it felt like breathing for the first time. A board member cleared his throat. "If what you say is true, this compromises the entire board." Carter nodded once. "It does." Another board member, older, visibly shaken, whispered, "Graham, what have you done?" Graham's jaw tightened. "This is a misinterpretation." But the room no longer listened. In that moment, Carter understood something important. Power did not always crumble in explosions. Sometimes it cracked quietly in the sudden shift of a room deciding it no longer believed the man who claimed control. Eleanor rose slowly, her gaze pinned to her son. Her voice trembled, not with weakness, but with the shock of seeing him step beyond her reach. "Carter," she said softly, "you are putting everything at risk." Carter stood as well. He walked around the table until he stood near her. His voice lowered, and for the first time he spoke as a son rather than a CEO. "I have been risking everything for years," he whispered. "I have risked myself." Eleanor's eyes glistened. "You do not understand what it costs to protect a legacy." "I do," Carter replied, his voice thickening. "I just refuse to call it protection when it is a prison." Eleanor's breath trembled. She looked away for a moment, as though fighting tears she would never allow the room to see. When she looked back, something in her expression had softened, fractured, shifted. "Where is she?" Eleanor asked quietly, the question sharper than it sounded. "The woman you are defending." Carter's heart tightened. "She is not here." Vivian stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "So this is what this is," she said, the first true anger slipping through. "You are humiliating everyone in this room because of a romantic obsession." Carter turned toward her calm. "I am ending a manipulation. Your family's influence, your father's connections, the board's ambitions. You do not get to call it romance, to dismiss it." Vivian's eyes flashed. "You will regret this." Carter's voice was steady. "The only thing I would regret is losing my integrity." The meeting ended not with applause, but with shock, fractured alliances, and the unmistakable sensation of an era collapsing. Lawyers were called, votes were delayed, motions were tabled. Board members whispered fiercely to one another while Carter walked out of the room with slow, unshakable steps. He did not run. He did not hide. He went straight downstairs. The lobby was flooded with reporters. Cameras lifted instantly, microphones pushed forward. Voices called his name. "Mr. Whitmore, is it true you rejected the engagement? Is the board forcing you out? Who is Lily Bennett to you?" Carter's heart hammered once, then steadied. He stepped to the podium set up near the entrance, his face composed, his gaze clear. He spoke without theatrics, but his voice carried. "I will not be entering into an engagement for public optics," he said. "My personal life will not be used as a corporate strategy." Flashes popped. He continued, "Whitmore Industries will address the labor situation with respect and transparency, and there are ongoing internal reviews concerning the spread of misinformation and targeted attacks." The crowd erupted in questions. "Are you referring to Lily Bennett?" Carter's throat tightened, but he did not waver. He looked into the cameras and for the first time, he stopped performing. "Yes," he said. A wave of murmurs rolled through the crowd. "Lily Bennett has acted with integrity," Carter continued. "She has advocated for working families with courage and honesty. She has been falsely targeted, and I will not stand by while that happens, not to her, not to anyone." His words landed like a declaration. Then he stepped away. Outside, cold air struck his face. His driver waited, but Carter did not move toward the car immediately. His phone vibrated in his pocket. A message. From Lily. He opened it, breath catching. "I saw the live stream. Are you all right?" Carter's eyes burned with emotion. He typed with trembling fingers. "I am better than all right. I chose truth. I chose you." He paused, then added the words his heart had carried for days. "Meet me. Please." He sent the message and looked up at the grey sky, breath fogging. He felt exposed, uncertain, terrified of what came next. But beneath the fear was something stronger. Hope. He arrived at the river walk where they had met days ago, the wind sharp against his cheeks. The water moved slowly beneath the winter light, reflecting the steel sky above. Carter stood by the railing, hands in his coat pockets, trying to steady his breathing. Footsteps approached. He turned. Lily walked toward him, bundled in her coat, her cheeks flushed from the cold. Her eyes were wet, shimmering with emotion she did not bother hiding. "You did it," she whispered, when she reached him. Carter swallowed hard. "I was terrified." Her voice trembled. "I was terrified, watching." He stepped closer, unable to hold distance any longer. His hands reached for hers, slow and gentle, waiting for permission. Lily placed her hands in his. The warmth of her touch spread through him like a sunrise. "I did not want you to destroy yourself," Lily whispered. "I did not destroy myself," Carter murmured. "I found myself." Her lips trembled. "And what does that mean for us?" Carter lifted her hands to his chest, pressing them there so she could feel his heartbeat. "It means," he said softly, "I want a life where I do not have to trade my soul for stability. I want a life where love is not a liability." Lily's breath shook. "Carter." He stepped closer until their foreheads nearly touched. "I cannot promise you a world without battles," he whispered, "but I can promise you that you will not fight alone. Not if you choose me." Tears slipped down Lily's cheeks. She did not wipe them away. She let them fall as if the cold could not touch them. "I choose you," she whispered. Carter's breath broke. His hands rose to cup her face, his thumbs brushing her cheeks with reverent tenderness. Their kiss was slow, trembling, full of everything they had contained for too long. It was not about scandal or headlines. It was about two hearts deciding to stand in truth. When they pulled apart, Lily rested her forehead against his. "Do you know what the city will say now?" she whispered. Carter smiled faintly through emotion. "Let them say it." Lily's voice softened into something radiant. "They will learn our name." Carter held her tighter, his arms firm around her, as if anchoring her to him against every storm that had tried to separate them. Above them, the grey sky began to brighten just slightly, as though Chicago itself was exhaling, and for the first time Carter Whitmore did not feel like the Dubai Maharaja. He felt like a man who had finally chosen love with open eyes, and Lily Bennett, the woman who could not be bought, stood beside him not as a rumor, not as a headline, but as the triumph of a truth no one could silence. Chicago had changed in 9 years. Buildings had risen where empty lots once stood. The riverfront had transformed into a vibrant artery of art and light, and winter no longer felt like a season of resignation, but a backdrop for a city that had learned how to fight for its own humanity. Yet for Carter Whitmore and Lily Bennett, the most meaningful changes had occurred far from the skyline. On a crisp spring afternoon, the Whitmore Foundation Park buzzed with gentle laughter and soft music as families strolled beneath blossoming trees. A celebration banner fluttered near the entrance. 9 years of reform, 9 years of renewal, 9 years of courage. Near the center of the park stood a statue of entwined hands, cast in smooth bronze. It was not grandiose, it was not ostentatious, it was human, and that made it perfect. At the foot of the statue, a small girl bent down to place a wildflower she had found near the playground. "Daddy!" she called, her voice bright and clear. "Look!" Carter turned toward her, his smile softening into something that reached his eyes in a way it had not 9 years earlier. He walked over and lifted the little girl easily into his arms. "That is beautiful, Ellie," he murmured, kissing her forehead. "Just like you." Ellie wrapped her arms around his neck with all the confidence of a child who had grown up loved. A few steps away, another child, older, thoughtful, approached the statue with a notebook in hand. Claire, their eldest, traced the engraved words at its base with quiet reverence. "Integrity is not inherited, it is chosen. Every day." Lily approached her daughter with gentle steps. "Reading it again?" Claire nodded. "It reminds me why you and Dad did everything you did." Lily rested a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "We did it because we wanted you and your sister to grow up in a world where truth still means something." Claire smiled, leaning her head against her mother for a moment. She had Lily's warmth and Carter's contemplative gaze, a perfect blend of the woman who fought for others and the man who learned to fight beside her. Across the park, Matteo waved as he walked toward them with his youngest son. He had built a statewide community support network over the past decade, one that trained advocates, provided legal counsel, and forged coalitions that had changed legislation. He greeted Carter with a firm embrace. 9 years, he said, shaking his head. Feels like both yesterday and a lifetime. Carter laughed quietly. Because it was both. And yet, Matteo added, glancing at Lily, here you are, still choosing each other every single day. Lily joined them, Ellie now tugging on her skirt to be picked up. Lily scooped her into her arms, pressing a kiss to her cheek. Some choices, she said softly, never stopped choosing themselves. The years had been kind to Lily. Gentle creases formed near her eyes from years of smiling, fighting, and living fully. Her work had grown far beyond Chicago. She was now the voice of national labor coalitions, a symbol of fairness, integrity, and resilience. Yet she remained grounded, humble, always choosing compassion over pride. Carter slipped an arm around her waist. He was no longer the polished, untouchable mogul he once appeared to be. He had stepped down from the CEO role years earlier, not because he had lost it, but because he had outgrown it. He now served as president of the Whitmore Foundation, steering it away from corporate interests and into community-centered impact. And he was happier than he had ever been. But the journey had not been free of cost. Some board members had been prosecuted, others had resigned in disgrace. The Whitmore family legacy had undergone a painful transformation, and in those early years, as Carter stood firm beside Lily, society had not always been kind. Rumors resurfaced. People attacked their relationship as unorthodox, inconvenient, dangerous. Yet their love had endured, not because it was perfect, but because it was chosen every day, even on days when it hurt. A gentle breeze swept through the park, stirring the wildflowers planted across the lawn. Vivian Caldwell passed through the crowd at a distance, wearing a conservative navy coat, her posture still pristine. She nodded politely when Carter's gaze met hers, then shifted her attention to a donor nearby. Vivian had paid a price too. Ambition often left people lonelier than they expected. She remained powerful, but the warmth around her had dimmed over the years. Even so, she had softened, just slightly, enough to respect the couple she once tried to undo. Eleanor Whitmore sat on a bench beneath the shade of a blooming pear tree. Her hair was silver now, her posture elegant as always. But her expression had softened with time and with understanding. She watched Lily laugh with Claire and Ellie, her eyes warming. 9 years ago, she had fought against what she saw as a threat to her family's name. Now, she saw it as its salvation. Carter approached her with Ellie in his arms. "Mom," he said gently. Eleanor smiled, touching her granddaughter's cheek. "You have grown so much," she whispered to Ellie, who giggled and buried her face in Carter's shoulder. Eleanor looked at her son then, emotion filling her eyes. "You were right, you know." Carter raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "That legacy is nothing without integrity." She paused, glancing toward Lily. "And without love." Carter's breath caught, warmth rising in his chest. He placed Ellie on the bench beside her grandmother and sat next to them. Eleanor whispered, "Your father would be proud." Carter's throat tightened. "I hope so." Back near the statue, Lily stood quietly, watching the families gathered at the event, the workers who had once slept in freezing buildings now thriving because she refused to be intimidated by power. She felt Claire's hand slip into hers and looked down to see her daughter gazing at her with fierce admiration. "Mom," Claire asked softly, "did you ever regret it?" Lily's heart clenched tenderly. Regret what? Fighting the system, choosing Dad, standing against everything. Lily bent down, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "Never," she whispered, "not for 1 second." Claire smiled through misty eyes. "Good, because you two taught me that love is strong when people are brave." Lily's eyes filled with tears. She pulled Claire into a tight embrace. As afternoon sunlight filtered through the trees, casting golden flecks across the park, Carter walked toward Lily, their younger daughter running happily ahead of him. The moment he reached Lily, he took her hand with the same tenderness he had held 9 years earlier, when life felt like a battlefield lined with fragile hope. They stood together in the center of the park they had built from ashes and courage. "Do you ever think," Carter murmured, brushing his thumb across her hand, "about how close we came to losing this?" Lily leaned into him, her voice warm. "We did not lose it. We fought for it." He kissed her forehead gently, reverently, with the kind of love that had aged beautifully, deepening instead of fading. Their daughters played under the flowering trees. Friends and allies gathered around them. The city hummed with life, and the world, once choked with lies and manipulation, had made room for truth. 9 years had passed. Their love had not dimmed. Their bond had not fractured. Their hearts had not surrendered. They had built a life not from privilege, not from image, not from power, but from choice. A choice they made every morning when they woke up beside each other, a choice they made every night when they looked at their daughters and saw everything they had fought to protect. A choice that felt, even after 9 years, like a miracle. Lily rested her head on Carter's shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her, holding her close, and together, watching their children race beneath the pear trees, they smiled. Because love had not simply survived, it had triumphed. If there is one truth woven through every moment of Lily and Carter's journey, it is this: love is not for the faint of heart. Love demands courage, integrity, vulnerability. And sometimes, love requires us to stand against the very structures built to contain us. Lily reminded us that dignity cannot be bought, and that one voice, steady, unwavering, and guided by compassion, can shift the balance of power. Carter showed us that legacy means nothing without authenticity, and that real strength begins the moment we stop performing and start choosing who we want to be. Together, they proved that love does not weaken us. Love fortifies us. Love transforms us. Love teaches us to rise. Their story is a reminder that no matter how strong the forces against us may seem, public opinion, fear, expectation, or pressure, choosing truth over convenience is always worth it. Choosing love over silence is always worth it. Choosing ourselves is always worth it. And now, dear viewer, I want to invite you into this moment. Tell me in the comments, what part of this story touched you the most? What lesson will you carry with you? And if you watched all the way to this final reflection, write the word courage in the comments. It is the word that defined Lily and Carter's destiny, and it tells me that you stayed with them until their very last breath on the page. Your presence here matters more than you know. If you wish to support the team that brings these emotional, dramatic love stories to life, you can send a super thanks on YouTube in whatever amount you feel comfortable with. Every gesture, big or small, helps us continue creating these unforgettable journeys. And if supporting financially is not possible right now, please consider sharing this story with someone who loves romantic dramas filled with emotion and depth. Sharing is another beautiful way to help this channel grow. When you finish here, I invite you to explore the other narrations I'm leaving in the cards, stories filled with passion, healing, conflict, and love that triumphs against all odds. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for watching, feeling, and living this tale with us. And always remember, love is brave, love is relentless, love is worth fighting for.